My name is Matthew. I'm a 25-year-old working at a trading company. Since I've only been with the company for 3 years, I often feel like I still have a long way to go. However, even so, I rarely feel demotivated, thinking I'm no good. I think that's probably thanks to Kate, who was my direct boss and has now been promoted to department head at an exceptionally fast pace. Kate was the type of person who would grab the attention of employees just by walking through the office. The reason isn't just her work skills. Her sharp almond-shaped eyes, a nose as beautiful as a celebrity's, thin, well-shaped lips, and a tightly defined jawline with no excess made her a supremely beautiful woman in every aspect. Kate was so gorgeous that whenever she visited a client, there would always be a few people trying to win her over. Despite her exceptional work abilities, she had a delicate aura about her. Therefore, many male employees who knew it would be presumptuous to consider her as a romantic partner often looked at her with admiration bordering on longing. On top of that, she had a figure like a celebrity and a kind personality, while also having the capacity to gently push us forward. She was always calm and reliable. Except for a few envious male employees, she had always been well-liked. Since joining this company, I was fortunate to have Kate as my boss and receive direct guidance from her. I think I was really lucky in that regard. Perhaps due to my naturally careless nature, she often had to remind me, listen first, then act. Don't forget to double-check even the smallest things before moving forward. The fact that I've been able to grow this far without incident is undoubtedly thanks to her. I never thought of her in an opportunistic way like some other male employees did, but I did admire her as a beautiful and capable person. The feelings I had for her were similar to those I might have for a favorite athlete or artist. However, being with her wasn't always a good thing. Because she was so skilled, she often pointed out minor details, and she never joked around. She wasn't the kind of person who was fun to talk to, and even when she spoke in a gentle tone, she showed almost no emotion whatsoever. So I was always nervous when talking to her. I was somewhat inarticulate and had a laid-back vibe, so I preferred talking to cheerful and pleasant colleagues or those who could brighten my mood just by chatting with them. Being with them lifted my spirits, and even if something unpleasant happened, the gloomy feeling would fade after talking to them. Being beautiful and good at your job is great, but I found myself more drawn to people who made me feel good when talking to them. But even that was just a matter of liking them as a person, regardless of gender. Nearly 2 years had passed without me being able to fully open up to Kate, who was now a department head looking after me. Even so, I thought that was fine. While it may be important for a leader to be gentle and approachable, if they get too close and become too friendly, I feel like they might not be able to tighten the reins when needed. That's why I thought Kate, who was matter-of-fact and didn't go out of her way to be overly friendly, had the qualities of someone who should be in a leadership position. Matthew, about the document you submitted the other day, there were a few minor points that needed revision, so I put some sticky notes on it. Could you please check it again? She said in a gentle voice. I hurriedly replied, I'm sorry. Thank you for taking the time to look it over despite your busy schedule. I'll revise it right away. She curved her beautiful lips and said, Yeah, thanks. Even though I didn't have any special feelings for her, she was always beautiful, and it made my heart skip a beat. They say that a person's character is more important than their appearance, but in terms of boosting work motivation, I think appearance is also important in a way. Looking at her makes me think that the ability to attract people is directly linked to the power to lead. And looking at her, I can't help but realize that appearance is a part of that. Of course, I know it's not just about that. Even after 2 years of interacting with her like this every day, I still found myself captivated by her beauty, and that hadn't changed. As I was caught up in work day after day, coming home to eat my favorite foods and take a breather, then diving into bed and falling asleep right away, the season turned to summer. Perhaps due to global warming in recent years, the summer heat feels almost tropical. I was getting exhausted just thinking about how the oppressive heat, which makes even walking outside a chore, was coming back to slowly attack my body from the inside. Due to the abnormal heat, the sales staff were especially warned to take care of their health. One day, as the intense heat was in full swing, I was scheduled to visit a client with Kate. Even though I was used to it, being alone with her still made me nervous as we rarely talked. With that thought in mind, I quietly waited for her to get into the passenger seat. However, even after the car started moving, she seemed nonchalant, as if the silence didn't bother her much. As usual, Kate said in a matter-of-fact tone, "Well then, shall we go?" "Yes," I replied and clumsily turned up the air conditioning, causing a gust of hot air to blow out. No matter how much we parked in the shade, it was still quite hot inside the car. The hot air was so intense that even Kate couldn't help but say, "It's hot." Seeing her like that when she's usually so composed made me feel a bit more at ease. I slowly started the car and began driving down the street. The car was engulfed in silence for a while, but soon Kate started talking about the client. From there, I asked questions and expanded the conversation, somehow managing to keep it going. It would take about 30 minutes by car to reach the client's office. Knowing that Kate had been very busy in the morning and hadn't had lunch, I asked, "We still have some time to spare. Shall we stop by a convenience store?" She looked a little pleased and said, "Yes, please." Worried about her, I asked, "You had so much work today, didn't you?" She replied with a nonchalant expression, "Yeah, the workload is totally different from before. I don't even have time for lunch." Seeing her like that, I felt the urge to help her return the favor somehow. "I see. If you're busy like today again, I can buy something that you can eat with one hand while working. Just let me know anytime." "Oh, I always go to the convenience store, so if you tell me, I can easily pick up anything for you," I offered. "Thank you, but most of the time I'm too busy to even convey that to you, so I'll just gratefully accept your kind gesture," she said, ending the conversation. Hearing her response, I reflected on my words. That's true. If she doesn't have time to eat lunch, there's no way she'd have time to ask me to buy something for her. I put my foot in my mouth again. As I was secretly feeling down, Kate said, "You always pay attention to those around you and try to help them. I think everyone is helped by someone like you. Thank you for always being considerate of others." Feeling a bit embarrassed but happy, I replied, "You're the one who's always watching over us like that, Kate. We're always motivated at work thanks to you." At that, she seemed extremely embarrassed. Maybe it's because I always thought of her as someone from a different world. Every time I saw her human side, I felt a sense of relief and warmth. Perhaps it's because I know she's a very compassionate person. Even though I get nervous around her, the silence with her doesn't make me restless, and there's a comfort in not having to force a conversation. Being with her isn't super fun or uplifting, but as I get more opportunities to see her relaxed impressions, I feel like I can be less tensed in her presence. After driving for a while, I parked the car in front of a convenience store. Kate said, "Sorry and thank you," as she was about to get out. Following her, I hurriedly said, "I'll buy something too," and opened the driver's side door. She got a sandwich and fruit juice while I got an iced coffee. We took a short break in the car where the air conditioning had finally started to kick in. Sighing and elegantly peeling off the plastic wrap, Kate took a bite of her sandwich. She looked much more tired than before. I thought to myself, it must be tough since she became a department head, and let myself be immersed in the sound of the radio. Without talking much, I quietly sipped my coffee, hoping that she could at least rest during this time. However, just before we reached Seat Corporation, our client, the car suddenly slowed down and came to a complete stop. Huh. What's going on? No matter how many times I tried to restart the engine, the car wouldn't start. I immediately called the company and arranged for the car to be towed. The place where the car broke down was a rather rural road, but fortunately, we were very close to our client, Seat Corporation. I suggested that she go ahead to Seat Corporation while I wait for the mechanic to pick up the broken car. That's when I noticed something was off about her. She started breathing heavily, her eyes narrowed in pain, and her face looked terribly ill. Come to think of it, I heard from my colleagues that she had been working on several projects simultaneously, and one particularly important project was a huge responsibility with a lot of things to do. It's no wonder she's not feeling well after working nonstop and being stuck in the scorching heat without air conditioning. Kate, Seat Corporation is just over there. Let's have you rest there, I said, but she coldly replied, Why? Kate, I know you don't have any leeway right now, but you clearly aren't feeling well, and you can't proceed with a meeting like this. Here, lean on me, I said and turned my back to her, crouching down. You look like you're about to collapse. Please get on quickly. Surprisingly, she didn't resist and climbed onto my back. I moved slowly so that she wouldn't feel any worse, and I stepped into Seat Corporation. Excuse me, I called out to the receptionist, who looked startled. What's going on? My boss, who is a company manager, seems to be feeling unwell, probably due to heat stroke. I was wondering if I could borrow some ice packs or something cold to cool her down. I'm sorry for asking this so suddenly. Would it be possible to let her rest somewhere? I asked without worrying about appearances. ##. The receptionist said, That's terrible. Please wait, I'll check right away, and immediately asked one of the employees. We have some. I'll have one of our employees come right away. So, could you please wait a moment? Thank you so much, that's a huge help, I replied. Despite my sudden request, the receptionist responded immediately without a hint of annoyance. In recent years, the fact that heat stroke can be life-threatening has been widely publicized, so everyone probably responded quickly. Thanks to that, I was relieved that Kate would be okay. Now the employee hurried over. Sorry for the delay. Please come this way, he said, and immediately led us to a room. Here, I brought ice bags, ice sports drinks, and towels. Please use all of these. Hearing about the heat stroke, he brought other things that might be necessary. On top of that, he even asked if we had enough. Deeply touched by his thoughtfulness, I quickly accepted the items and said, Thank you so much. I placed an ice bag wrapped in a towel under Kate's arms. After resting for a while, her complexion and expression seemed to have calmed down considerably. After a while, she let out a small groan and woke up. Kate, how are you feeling? Yeah, thanks. Because you noticed and I was able to rest like this, I'm feeling much better. I'm glad, I said with relief. I felt like she was staring at me. Suddenly, I noticed that the bottle of drink I had handed her earlier hadn't decreased much. Kate, if you're not feeling sick, could you please drink a little more? I heard it's better to stay hydrated. She silently reached for the bottle and started drinking the sports drink. Then, after having her rest a bit more just in case, her complexion and appearance seemed to have recovered considerably. So, I said, please let me know when you think you can move. I think it'll be tough to even sit in a passenger seat if you're in pain like earlier. Thank you. I'm feeling much better now, Kate said as she sat up. I continued observing her as she sat there for a while, and her expression no longer seemed to be in pain. So, I said, Oh, you were feeling a bit better. That's great. Well then, I'll go check on the car. I hurried to where the car was. I had contacted the mechanic while Kate was sleeping, so they were waiting near the car. I explained the situation and had them tell the car. Then, I returned to the infirmary and informed the receptionist that she was feeling much better. I thanked them repeatedly, and the receptionist said, I'm so glad to hear that, with a genuinely relieved expression. I wasn't sure if it was a coincidence or if he had been worried about her the whole time, but the employee from earlier happened to pass by and asked, Is she feeling better? Yes, thanks to all of you. Thank you so much, I said, and bowed deeply. No, no, we just did what anyone would do. Please raise your head, the employee said in a humble manner. I'm glad we got to work with these people. I'm glad it was them that I happened to rely on today. Touched by their kindness, my heart felt warm. Then, one of our employees who was free came to pick us up. When we got in the car, Kate no longer had a pained expression. I'm glad it seems your condition has improved, I said with a sigh. She still looked a bit surprised but smiled and said, Yes, thank you for everything. You saved me, Matthew. But I was still worried that you might feel sick again, so I said, Please let me know right away if you start feeling unwell. Even a slight illness can greatly affect your health going forward. Kate replied, I understand. At first, she seemed reluctant to rest even when she wasn't feeling well, but now she honestly agreed, which relieved me. That being said, now that her condition had recovered, there was only one thing on her mind: how to catch up on work after returning. That's all I knew. Even if I told her not to push herself, there were circumstances where she had to, given her position. I understood that just telling her not to overdo it irresponsibly wouldn't be of any help to her, so I offered, if there's any work I can do, please let me know. I think I've been in your care a lot, Kate, but I feel like I haven't been able to return the favor yet. So, anything is fine, just tell me. However, she refused, saying, It's okay. Besides, there are many things that only I can do, so I don't think there's much you can help with. But I'm sure there are tasks that even I can do. Anything is fine. You're busy with preparations for that project, right? That's why I want to help in any way I can, please. Even though she refused once, I persistently pushed the issue, and before I knew it, we had arrived at the entrance of the company. Kate seemed to have no choice but to give in, and said, All right, well then, if you don't mind, could you help me a little with my work? Yes. From that day on, I started finishing my work quickly and helping Kate with her tasks. Normally, one would want to avoid such a situation as much as possible, but when I thought it was for Kate, I felt overflowing motivation. Perhaps it's because I have a strong sense of gratitude towards her for teaching me work so clearly and diligently in the past, turning me into a useful employee. For me, Kate had become someone I didn't want to see in pain, even if it meant exhausting my own strength. Of course, I had never felt this way about any other senior colleague before. Before I knew it, I might have started thinking of her as family or a cherished relative. I tried to take on as many tasks that anyone could do, working hard, harder each day, so that she could rest even a little. I thought I had reduced her burden a bit and allowed her to take it easy, but reality wasn't that sweet. The day before the presentation for the important project she had mentioned earlier, Kate was typing away with an unprecedentedly critical expression. However, her face looked more exhausted than ever, and her eyes were hollow. Her complexion was also terribly pale. She was probably rushing to do the final checks to ensure the presentation tomorrow would be perfect. As I watched her typing away without rest, I became increasingly worried. I mustered up the courage and said, Kate, if you keep looking so unwell and are about to collapse again, you won't even be able to do the presentation. Come on, let's call it a day here, and if you're worried, you can come in early tomorrow and check it again. But she wouldn't budge, saying, No, even if I go home like this, I don't think I'll be able to sleep because I'll be thinking about work, so I'll stay a bit longer. However, if she stayed late with that complexion, it seemed like she would end up like last time. To her, who wasn't considering her own well-being at all, I asked, Kate, you may think you can still push yourself, but remember when you became dizzy and couldn't stand for a while? You know that wasn't just because of the heat, right? But she said, But I keep thinking of more things I want to add, so I can't go home yet. If it really old me, I probably would have backed down here. But I don't want to see you go through that again. No matter how you look at it, you seem to be in as much pain as when you almost collapsed before. Even if you work now, there's a high chance of making mistakes. Let's go home. I strongly persuaded her, giving her no room for objection. "Where do you live, Kate?" I would never ask such a thing under normal circumstances, but at that moment, I was extremely worried about her. Perhaps overwhelmed by my intensity, she readily answered, "Oh, T-Town. I'll give you a ride home. I'm worried about you in this condition." Saying that, I made her save all her data and possibly took her out of the office. The usual Kate would have flatly refused even then, but perhaps she was considerably weakened. She silently followed my instructions. She was probably aware that she was actually in pain. Even so, she seemed unable to rest, feeling a great sense of responsibility for being appointed as a department head at the exceptionally young age of 3 years my senior. As we exited the entrance, I made her get into a taxi without giving her a choice. "I'm worried, so I'll accompany you," I said, but she declined out of politeness, saying, "No, that's too much." However, when I said, "I want to accompany you because I'm worried. It's better to have more people who can respond immediately if you start feeling unwell," Kate didn't argue further, perhaps because she had experienced it before. I had her tell the driver her home address, and the taxi slowly started moving. I was worried that riding in a car when she wasn't feeling well might make her feel even worse, but after a while, Kate rested her head against the window and quietly closed her eyes to rest. Despite looking so miserable that day, she had been working as if nothing had happened from the next day until today. I was worried that she might collapse again, so I stayed overtime with her every day. However, perhaps because she was putting on a brave face, she never seemed on the verge of collapsing. The taxi was driving slowly and gently, so it didn't seem like she would feel sick. Seeing her dozing off with a more relaxed expression than before, I felt relieved. The car continued to drive quietly for a while and soon stopped in front of a beautiful apartment building. "We've arrived," the driver said. "Thank you. Here you go," I replied. "All right. Here's your change of $10. Kate must have been extremely tired. We exchanged words in a low voice so as not to wake her up, as she was still fast asleep. After paying the fare, I gently shook her shoulder. "Kate, we're here." "Oh, thank you." The fare." Saying that, I took her hand that was reaching for her bag and said, "I already paid, so please hurry back to your room and rest, Kate." As she got out of the taxi, she tried to take out her wallet again, saying, "No, I can't have you do that much for me." I stopped her hand again and said, "Before joining this company, I always thought I was a failure. I knew that people around me treated me like I was incapable and looked down on me. But now, thanks to meeting you, Kate, I really enjoy living and working. The reason I can spend my days without feeling miserable is that I joined this company and worked under you. You never scolded me harshly or showed anger or contempt. Even when I made mistakes, you calmly taught me tips to avoid mistakes and things to be careful about. You taught me work in a very easy-to-understand way, so I was finally able to become normal. I'm thrilled to be useful now, so please let me do this much." Kate listened to my sudden speech with her head down in silence. "But I want to handle money matters properly. For me, it's enough if you can do your job well at this company. That's my duty as a boss." Well, normally, no one would silently accept a taxi fare from a junior colleague. Not knowing what to say, I said, "Then please take me out for something delicious to eat next time. I think you'll be good for your health, Kate." She chuckled and said, "Okay." At that moment, for some reason, I felt that Kate had come to trust me a little. I was happy, feeling like the distance between us had narrowed a bit. Perhaps because she had slept a little, her complexion had improved considerably. Her expression, which had been strained and enduring something until earlier, now looked much more relaxed. That's good. I wonder if I was able to stop her from suffering again before it happened. Still, I felt frustrated that I didn't have enough strength to help her much. However, I was glad that I could save her when she was in a pinch and cooperate as much as possible to prevent her from overworking herself. I need to grow more and more myself. There are still few tasks that she can entrust to me. I want to grow quickly, just like her. I had always felt impatient about not being able to be useful to those around me, but this was the first time I felt so restless. That feeling was different from love, more like affection or something. It was close to the feeling of a chick thinking that the first thing it sees is its parent. Since I was worried until she safely entered her room on the 3rd floor, I decided to see her off to her doorstep. As expected, she was still walking unsteadily due to exhaustion, so I accompanied her to her doorstep. You helped me again. Thanks to you, I feel like I've been able to avoid collapsing. Thank you so much, she said and quietly entered her room. For some reason, I felt a sense of loneliness at the sound of the door closing. The next day, thanks to resting yesterday, Kate's complexion had improved, and a presentation was a great success. After that, she continued to work on the project smoothly with her team and achieved great success. Seeing her and her teammates being praised by everyone and looking happy, I felt somehow happy myself. At the same time, I became worried that she might overwork herself again by piling up work from now on. But she's a department head, so it can't be helped. I'll try to help her as much as I can from now on. With that thought, I desperately finished my own work every day and started going to ask her if there was anything I could do. However, she refused, saying, "That project is over now, so it's fine. You should focus on your own work. Besides, I'd be in trouble if you overwork yourself this time." But I still didn't feel like backing down. I don't want to see you like that again, Kate. No matter how much you've been promoted, I don't think you have to take on everything by yourself. You're not considering your own health enough. Please rely on us more. Please be more aware of what your body is telling you when it's in pain. In the end, I felt like I was losing strength, but I conveyed my feelings with all my might. Then she said, "I didn't think you were the type to assert yourself so strongly at first, but I give to you, Matthew. All right, if there's something I can ask for your help with again, I'll let you know." She smiled softly, looking a bit more relaxed than before. A few days later, under the guise of a celebration, Kate took me to a rather fancy small restaurant as a thank you for taking care of her and paying for the taxi. By this time, she had become much more relaxed when talking to me and shared her upbringing and why she had become unable to finish work well. She said that she had never been able to make friends she could truly trust, even at part-time jobs, and tended to be isolated because she couldn't communicate well with everyone. She had struggled to interact with various people in college and managed to maintain superficial relationships to the extent that she didn't make others uncomfortable. However, she graduated from college without making anyone she could consider a close friend. As everyone said, "It's because I'm a boring person that I can't make friends, right? So I've been working hard to at least become someone who is needed at work." Then one day, I realized that I don't have anyone I can rely on and say, "Please help me because I'm in pain." That's why I've always thought that I can't push work onto my colleagues just because I'm not feeling well. I believe that as a working adult, it's normal to endure even if you're not feeling well. But after meeting you, Matthew, I feel like I've finally been able to break down that belief a little. I never thought someone would come along and tell me it's okay to rely on them. You kept saying I'm amazing, but to me, you're far more amazing for always thinking about helping everyone and being able to talk to everyone without distinction. Seeing you having fun talking with everyone makes me realize that there are more important things in life than just work performance. As she spoke, narrowing her eyes as if cherishing something, my heart started racing. It was the first time I had been praised for my personality and way of living like this. That day, we talked about various things such as our past lives, what we had been thinking about, and childhood stories. It was a really nice dinner. She thinks she's someone who can only work, but that's not true. From her attitude, I can really tell that she wants to explain things clearly to us and is considerate enough to not want us to work too hard. Her thoughtfulness comes across even if she seemed cold at first glance. When I told her that She smiled softly as if a flower had bloomed. Seeing that expression, I felt even more strongly that I wanted to continue working with her, and I wanted to support her so that